Okay, good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Mr. Hawkins will be here shortly. Miss Smith is joining us via Zoom, and Mr. Grimes will be here shortly as well. Anyway, I think for those of you that are in the swim world, I think we can take some of the angst away from you. After visiting with the parks director and our finance director and Jamie and Felicia and Miss Isby, the chairman of the swim group, we have reached out to the A&P Commission to ask them about helping us fund the running of the center, the swimming, indoor, outdoor, and the center. That was our concern to start with, was the amount it was going to cost us for the upkeep and to keep it running daily and throughout the year. But it's actually our portion of the A&P Commission money, and it will take a vote of the A&P Commission to allow us to use that. But we feel very confident that they will do that. Mr. Winningham is going to give a breakdown on how that would be accomplished for the council so that they can make their decision. But our plan, hopefully moving forward, and you will know tonight, will be for the indoor portion is back in. So I know that makes y'all feel better. I'll be honest, it does me too. So anyway, Mr. Winningham. Mary, how those grandkids?
Oh, they're great. Try to keep them quiet for a few minutes.
Good luck.
Exactly.
All right, microphone on. So yeah, I just got this, just a brief overview of what our intent is for this project. This is a quick snapshot of the A&P funding for the city. Annual revenue this year, we're going to hit about the $4 million mark. We're just, again, looking at very round numbers. And if the bond election passes and we do issue the new bonds, the debt service on that is projected to be about $1.8 million. Then we do a $300,000 piece that subsidizes Expo Center operations. And then we plan to make a request to the A&P Commission for the community center operations, which we think is going to be about that $700,000 number to cover the deficit. The actual operations of the center is a couple million, roundabout, but the expenses outweigh the revenues, projected revenues, by that $700,000 number. So we will have about $1.2 million going forward for ongoing A&P projects.
Thank you, Mr. Winningham. And as you know, we've recently updated Laurel Park and Fifth Avenue Park, as well as Gatton Park. We've put turf in at a number of our fields, and y'all already approved the what we're going to do at Pompey Park. So according to Mr. Ibbotson, he feels like the 1.2 is going to be sufficient to keep Conway moving forward in our parks programs. So
I may need to get IT to help me get the screen back up there.
So Mr. Ibbotson is here, as well as our folks from Cruz and Associates, and also Gordon's here. Hey, Gordon, glad to have you back in Conway. So, council, if you have any questions of this group or Mr. Ibbotson, feel free to ask, or any. I think I'm fairly well educated in all this now, so I think I can answer most of your questions. If not, I'll just punt it to Sheila because I know she can answer them. Any questions? Well, council, we'll bring this back before you at 6:30, and we will ask you to pass resolution of intent for us to move forward with this, to place it on the ballot in February. And again, I want to let everyone know this is not, it's not an increase in tax. It's not anything new. It's just the extension of a bond issue. and it will provide something that we have needed for a long, long time in Conway,
Mhm.
and that is a place for kids and families to swim. There's also a soccer complex included in this. It's going to be out by Curtis Walker Park. The Human Development Center has partnered with us again. You know, they partnered with us on the McGee Owens complex, and they have provided us land there for free. And that's going to be a great place. It's going to bring a number of people into Conway. Soccer is big. Also, when we have baseball tournaments in Conway, it's going to give these kids and their families a place to go and swim. And there will be the indoor swimming lane, so we will be able to have competitions. So both of these are going to be good economic
Mhm.
drivers for the city of Conway. So anyway, unless y'all have some questions or comments, I'd really like for you to ask Steve some questions, just because I like to see him answer them. We will move this forward to the 6:30 meeting.
Right.
Yes, sir, Mr. Hawkins. Yes, sir. Indoor included.
Indoor, I heard, can you elaborate, or Mr. Winningham elaborate on that? Not Mr. Winningham, I'm sorry, Mr. Fun. Mr. Fun, could you elaborate on that for me, please? Thank you. Indoor? To play in, indoor.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes.
8 lanes, 25 yards.
Is there an outdoor?
There
as
is
well?
outdoor.
And a lazy river.
Like the 8 lanes?
There's the indoors at the top left, which shows an additional 2 lanes of just, so during competition, you can use that as a
Where's
warm-up area.
Where's the outdoor?
Down below it, where you see the yellow and blue. That's all outdoor there.
Okay.
All the way up to that upper square up there, and then you see the lanes and all that's indoor.
What's a natatorium?
A natatorium. That's an indoor pool.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. All right. Any other questions for any crews and associates, for Mr. Welborn?
And we have Craft and Toll and Hastings and Chevette here. So
Yes. Sorry,
I do
folks.
see
My bad.
Do we need to talk about the money on this? I mean,
We already have, but we'll bring you up to speed. Mr.
you would.
Mr. Winningham, come on back up.
I think I was that way.
I won't bring the slide up again, but Mr. Hawkins, what our plan is to do is to make a request of the A&P Commission to allow us to use a portion of the city's A&P revenue, to cover the deficit, the projected deficit in operations.
And tell me how that's gonna be done.
Could you be more specific? What do you?
Sure. Tell me where this money is coming from.
It's the city's portion that we already received.
Of the A&P money.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the years to finance this are,
It's 30.
it's a 30-year.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it's how much total? What's the total bonded?
It'll be $30 million in construction funds, 25 for the aquatic community center, $5 million for the soccer field, and the total bond issue is just shy of $40 million.
And I apologize for being late. The soccer field is going to be where?
Curtis Walker Park. It's free land donated to us by the Human Development Center, state of Arkansas.
Okay. And how many acres is that?
I think it's 60, 50. Okay, 50.
10 fields, same as we have now.
How much acreage do we have out there? Same size? Okay, very good. The money that's being, I heard you when I walked in, it's being rededicated, is that correct? Is that correct?
If the bond issue
Yes.
passes, it extends the debt on that money.
Okay, and that money right now is going to pay for what?
Right now, it is going to pay for, it's a refinancing we did in 2017, but the original issue was done for the baseball field, softball fields, the building of the expo center.
And maybe this is Mr. Wilburn, a question, but where are we as far as paying that down, and how much of that is being rolled into this next one? Paul, either you or Gordon, either one.
Well, it's a little confusing. There's a little over 9 million outstanding, but
Out of a total of what? You remember where we started with that? What was it? Paul, you remember?
it originated in 2007.
And there's 9. Okay.
And there's payment due on December 1st, so there'll be roughly 6.
Okay. Okay.
It's Mary's
And-
grandkids.
And gotta love, gotta love. And how much of the A&P money is going to be used for this? Is this going to take up 100%? How much of it will it take up, Mr. Winningham, of just the A&P funds?
The projected debt service is 1.8 million annually,
Okay.
and we get 4 million. It's in 2021. We're going to get about $4 million in revenue from our portion. So it'll be less than that.
There's 2 different pennies, and what you're pledging to it is all of 1 penny and 3/4 of another penny.
Okay.
But if these numbers held up, you wouldn't even be using all of the 1 penny.
Right.
Okay.
It's to get coverage and to provide assurance to bondholders is why you do that extra pledge.
Okay. Shouldn't this have gone to the A&P Commission first?
Well, they
Is that
they
just the
need
cart
to
before the
approve.
horse?
They need to approve the actual deal, which can't be determined if bonds are being issued. At that point, we would ask them to pass a resolution that shows which bonds are being offered in what amount, and and the actual preliminary offering document. Now, if you want to, for political reasons, ask them to adopt kind of a resolution of support before the election, that's a different question, but the legal requirement is before the bonds are issued.
Okay, so just before the bond.
Right.
So it does,
Right.
just checking, just to make sure. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Okay, well, that was quicker than I thought. We will adjourn till 6:30 p.m. Thank you all for being here. Good evening, everyone. Glad you're all here tonight. We proceed each council meeting with a word of prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like, please feel free to join us. Would you bow, please? Lord God, we thank you for your goodness, your grace, your mercy. And Lord, as we look at this Thanksgiving season, there are so many things we can be thankful for. We thank you for our health. We thank you for this city and this state and this nation. And we pray for our decisions tonight that they would be in line with your will. These things we ask in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll now call this meeting to order. Miss Hurd, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Hawkins.
Here.
Mr. Grimes.
Here.
Ms. Tucker. Here. Ms. Mel.
Here.
Mr. Ledbetter. Here. Ms. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Ms. Isby.
Okay, you should have received copies of the November 9th, 2021 City Council minutes. Any corrections, changes, or comments?
Second.
Make a motion to approve as submitted.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as submitted. If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 8-0. First on the agenda tonight is the monthly financials. Mr. Winningham will step up and tell us what's been going on ending October 31st of 2021.
It's the story of a broken record, but it's a story we like. Sales tax up again. It's about 13%. Year to date, we're up about 14%. Those two numbers are holding pretty steady, and you will hear me say that again next month because we got November sales tax numbers today, and they were again up about 13%, and year to date up about 14, almost 14 and a half. You can see in that far right column, 100%, we've already collected our budget for the year in sales tax. So November and December amounts will just be icing on the cake. Bottom line is still great. You see, if you were to do the average 10 months of the year, we should be about 83% of the way through our budget. And luckily, we're ahead of schedule in expenditures and behind schedule. Ahead of schedule in revenues and behind schedule in expenditures. So you see that nice looking $4.2 million net revenue so far for the year. So we've really been lucky. And I saw an article in the paper this weekend talking about that, about consumer spending, and it's, thoughts might tell you that spending is down and people are kind of holding on to their money just because of fear and concern and whatnot, but it's actually the opposite's true. People are buying goods and ordering things, and we see those numbers reflected in local sales taxes. So, and I think that concludes all of my comments unless the council has anything they'd like to discuss.
Mr. Winningham, I'd just like to make one comment if I could. I got this from a reliable source that tells me that even with as many dollars as are being spent on the internet right now, that 70% of purchases are still being made in person. And I don't know whether y'all have seen that number or not, but that is a pretty reliable number.
That's a good number, yeah.
And if you look at our shopping centers, you can tell that is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and one of the stories last year when the pandemic began was that consumers just shifted their spending. Instead of, especially if they commuted to work, while they were at work, they would, eat out, eat lunch, pick up something on the way home. When everything was closed and they were required to stay home, they were still spending that money, but it was in their local town as opposed to the town where they work. So still, a face-to-face or an in-person transaction, but just in a different area.
You think you can keep giving us these numbers next year, Mr. Winningham? We're gonna hold you to this.
I hope so. I hope so. I have been thinking about it, and I think one of the aspects that that probably is helping is the tax credit that's going to families with dependent children. And, you know, these last few months of the year, that $250 a month per child, I'm sure it's helped a lot with these families, and that's not going to necessarily not going to go away next year, but it's not going to be a monthly distribution. It's proposed to be accounted for when you file your taxes. So once that cash flow starts going away, you know, we could see a decline in spending. But Mayor, I'm going to do my very best.
Thank you, Mr.
to bring you those numbers.
That's all you can do.
Make a motion for the approval of
Second.
the financials.
Have a motion and a second to approve the financial report ending October 31st, 2021. Any other discussion?
One quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Not a difficult one, because you and I have talked about it. So knowing this with sales tax and stuff, and I know we're gonna be getting the draft budget to look at in early December, how are you projecting for next year? I know we're usually very conservative.
Right. We usually, the term we use is flat. We say we budget flat, but we budget flat based on the actual collections of the prior year. So we're going to hit about 24 million this year, and 24 million is what we're going to budget for next year. So budget-wise, it will be an increase, but since we're ahead of budget, it's going to be flat compared to actual. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Winnie. Ms. Hurd.
Aye.
Passes 8-0. Thank you, Mr. Winningham.
Yes, sir.
Next up, we have community development. Mr. Hawkins, I will turn this over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First item on the agenda is an ordinance calling and setting a date for a special election for the purpose of building a community center and soccer fields for the city of Conway. And we will have an ordinance to be read for this. We also have representatives of our bond companies, bond counsel with us, and so also people here to talk about swimming pools and other things. So we have an ordinance, and the ordinance number is
117.
117.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
I have a motion and a second to waive 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 8-0. Mr. Wilburn, we'd like to ask you to step up in case the council has any questions about you concerning the wording of this, and we'll turn it over to you.
Well, I know you've all read it. There's 3 separate questions that would go to the voters: the refunding of the existing bonds, the 2017 bonds, the community-centered question, and a soccer field question. Any or all of them could pass. You could, they're independent of each other. You could do 1 and 3, 2 or 3, 1 and 2, just whatever the voters actually approved. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
Mr. Wilburn, what happens in the case that number 1 passes and 2 and 3 fail? Can you go over those scenarios?
Well, 1 is the refunding question. So you would have to assess at that point in time what interest rates were, and could you achieve interest rate savings by refunding those bonds. And in today's market, there are some savings on that. Is that correct? Yeah. But, there might not be at that point, and then you would choose not to refund those bonds, and nothing would change. They would just stay outstanding. The 17 bonds would stay outstanding. You would continue to pay those.
Okay. If 1 fails and 2 and 3 pass, what?
Your existing indenture under which the 17 bonds are issued allow you to issue additional parity bonds with a coverage test of 130, I believe. So again, you would look at your last 12 months of collections and see how much debt that would support. Both of those questions are not to exceed amounts, so maybe you couldn't support all of that debt, and you'd have to decide how much under that you would want to issue. I don't know the numbers. If anybody's done the calculations, what that would allow you to do. Again, you got to assume what the interest rates are to make that calculation. So,
Thank you, sir.
And for those of you watching on TV and at home and in the audience, this is not a tax. It's just an extension of an existing bond issue that we have. So nothing will change in what you've been paying. It's It's just an extension, and it's going to, if it passes, we will build an indoor aquatic center, an outdoor swimming pool with a lazy river, and then also a soccer park. The swimming pool will be on land that we own, the city currently owns, on the property at the old airport, and it would be the Axiom building. The old Axiom building, we would turn that into a community center, and then the soccer fields will be located just slightly north of Curtis Walker Park on land that has been donated to us by the county. So our land's free, and that's kind of a hard deal to beat. But anyway, I want to let everyone at home know that that's what our plan is moving forward. Council, back to you.
Make a motion for the adoption of the
Second.
ordinance and the emergency clause.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance with the emergency clause. Mr. Wilburn, what date would we be looking at this for an election?
It is the second Tuesday
Tuesday
in
in
February, which is, let's see, that is in, February 8th,
Eighth.
Section 2, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, council, we have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance with the emergency clause. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
obviously tonight when I walked into the meeting, I did not know some of the things that were going on. And I think it would be a good thing at this point in time to have some of our representatives come up and explain how this money is going to pay for things. Would
No,
you agree
no.
with that? Would y'all be okay with that?
Mhm.
Very good. Mr.
Ben.
Winningham, would you mind coming up and talking about that? Because again, this was the first time I had heard this tonight.
Yes, sir. So the city, the A&P tax is a 2-cent tax. It's 2 1-cent taxes. And we get all of one of the 1 cents, and we get 3/4 of the other cent. And that revenue comes through the A&P Commission to the city, and we use that for parks facilities. And
And that generates how much a year?
this year we projected to hit $4 million.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
No,
And-
go ahead.
And we currently, so the existing bond debt that's out there, the 2017 bonds, the debt service on that is just over $1 million a year. And if this election passes and we refinance, that is projected to go up to about 1.8 million. So the 4 million less the 1.8 gives us about 2.2 million for ongoing parks projects. The A&P Commission has allowed us to use $300,000, up to $300,000 annually for operations at the Expo Center. And we plan to request A&P Commission approval for around $700,000 to cover what is the projected operating deficit of this new community and aquatic center. So we'll have about $1.2 million left over at the very bottom for ongoing parks projects with the A&P funding.
So the long and the short of it is it's not costing any additional tax dollars.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And that's what I had there. Could we hear from the people that have put the aquatic center
Sure.
together? That
There,
information?
we brought the whole show here
Well,
tonight.
I would like to hear it because it made me feel better when I talked to everybody that's here tonight. And so if that's okay with council,
Mhm.
thank you.
I don't know if we have a graphic available, but I can certainly describe, what would you like me to describe in particular? Just
Well,
the aquatic components or
Well,
the whole project?
What I didn't know tonight was the indoor component of
Mhm.
this has been put back into the mix. And so that's what really interested me from the get-go. So that's what I would like to talk about. And earlier tonight, there was a slide up there. I don't know whether, or I say a slide, that shows my age now. I don't know whether we can get that back up or not.
You do, yeah, I don't know, that was done by.
I've got it. I just thought people at home might want to
It
see
should be in
it.
your packet there, Andy.
No, I
Okay,
I
all
do have it. I thought people at home might want to see that. If we had capabilities, I don't guess we do.
But I could certainly
If you-
describe it, yeah.
if you would.
We've from the early concept, which was a indoor pool, we now have oh, maybe it'll pop up here. Oh, there you go.
Good.
Oh,
Thank you very
that was
much
awesome.
for putting that up.
Thank you. I don't have a pointer, so you'll have to just rely on me kind of describing what's indoor and what's outdoor. But in the northwest corner of this building, you can see the word natatorium. That is our 8-lane, 25-yard pool, and it is being designed as a competition pool and also a training pool for swim teams. But of course, you can do a whole lot of other things in that pool, particularly swim lessons, and lots of other recreational activities can take place in that pool. We have at least provided for, we will decide in the end whether or not we have 1 or 2 diving boards, so that as part of a high school team, you can support diving as well as swimming in this pool. It does have, and we're not showing the deck seating, but we have very large decks all the way around this pool at the pool level, so that accommodates with tip and roll bleachers. We can accommodate a number of swimmers. We've talked between 200 and 300 swimmers at a time on the deck during a very intensive swim meet. But we also have on the second level, and this is the plan to the right, that purple area, we have 250 spectator seats. So this would be for grandparents, parents, friends, even family members that would be off the pool deck. They wouldn't traditionally sit on the pool deck. We just have the swimmer themselves on the pool deck. The images come back. Also, as part of the indoor pool, so this is a 12-month a year pool operation, to the south of the big lap pool, which is 8 lanes, 25 yards, we have 2 additional lap lanes. These are slightly warmer water, but only by a couple of degrees. And these, of course, support a whole series of recreation and swim lesson use, but they also then support in a competition mode. We call those warm up and cool down lanes. So you can have a full swim meet going in the 8 lanes, but then for the actual swimmers themselves, they have a place to swim. After you compete, you warm up first, just like you would if you were competing in a road race. You then cool down, and so we've got that resource in here as well. But that's built into an indoor leisure pool that's got some play features for younger children. It's got a very short, it's not a lazy river. We have that outside, but for the inside, we have a little current channel. So we have water moving in a circle. So for someone who wants to do rehab or walk against a river condition, a current, we have that in that area. We also have a vortex. We have some underwater bubble benches. I don't know if anybody has ever sat on a bubble bench, but it's just for that reason. It's like sitting in your bathtub. Water bubbles up around you. So we have a whole series of fun recreation components that go into that indoor pool. And then I could talk about the outdoor pool, but I'll talk about the other support spaces that actually are required to support an indoor pool. We have a very large filter room. We have a guard office and also a pool manager office. It'll be very important, but as part of this project, the city will be hiring a pool manager to operate this facility. We have 2 party rooms directly off the pool deck. Those are great revenue generators, particularly on Saturdays and Sundays for birthday parties. You will cycle birthday parties all day. 8 hours of birthday parties going in and back and forth between those 2 different rooms. And then for the outdoor pool on the second floor, we have 3 additional party rooms as well. So those will be used when the outdoor pool is in operation. And then, of course, we have pool storage, and then we have the locker rooms to support both the indoor and outdoor use of the aquatic center. Then for the outdoor pool, we have a whole series of different activities. The outdoor pool is down in the southwest corner. At this point, we have 3 different slides of different length and height. 2 of them drop into what we call a plunge pool, so you actually are elevated, so you really do drop and splash into that pool. And then for younger children, we have a run-out pool, which allows for much younger children because they don't necessarily have to know how to swim because that run-out slide runs into about 4 inches of water. So that's, again, determined by height and ability to swim, which slide you get to use. We have a lazy river. That's this kind of, it almost looks like a dog bone. And that's just for floating. It runs in one direction. And of course, you get an inner tube and you can float in that. And of course, now, I don't know that you'll be serving cocktails out of the concession area, but you can imagine, floating with your margarita in your hand as you float around. That really won't happen. We don't allow drinks in the pool. But in any case, that's the idea. It's both for adults and also for kids to enjoy that. We have a bubble bench in the outdoor pool as well. We have some areas that are very shallow as part of this pool. It's we call it a tanning ledge. Now, we don't necessarily promote tanning. That's not necessarily a good thing, but we still have these available to individuals. You can drag one of the lounge chairs over and you can set it in about 4 inches of water and again lay there with that water right under you as you sunbathe and talk to your friends. We have that in a couple of locations. We have a zero entry beach. That's a little bit up toward the indoor pool. And of course, that's for very, very young children because it literally goes like a beach. It goes from 0 down to 18 inches of water. And we have a play structure, which actually includes a slide for the younger children. These are kind of those who can walk up to about 5 years old using that area. We have a tot pool. We have another vortex outside. Let's see, we also have a climbing wall. This is a new trend that we're seeing both indoors and outdoors, climbing wall at the edge of the pool. So you can climb up out of the water. And of course, when you get to the top, if you like, assuming no one's in your way, you get to fall back off of that, splash back into the water as well. And then we have it's kind of like a Ninja Warrior component. We have some floatables that are linked together and you can run across those. Because of course they move, they're floating in the water, and there's a jungle gym, ropes above that. So those combined are a fun activity. Of course, if you slip and fall, no harm done, you're slipping and falling into the water. So in addition to the indoor support spaces, we also will have a concession space that we haven't determined the menu yet, but often the outdoor pools will offer everything from, believe it or not, of course, what you'd expect, Cokes, sodas, water, all kinds of chips, but often these also have a grill, so you can also provide hot dogs and hamburgers and chicken sandwiches. And of course, the most popular thing purchased at an outdoor pool like this, you want to guess, would be pizza. And so we'll have at least a pizza oven in this because, again, it's a really strong, this is an addition to the daily fee or the yearly fee or summer fee you'll pay to come to this pool. Of course, you'd be surprised, but kids are often given a $20 bill when they go and spend the day in this pool, and so they'll spend that on all kinds of sometimes healthy food, but generally not healthy food. But the good thing is they'll spend all of it at the concession stand. We then have a whole series of lounges. We have some green space so you can also picnic. We'll have some grass actually inside. And then what look like helicopters, we'll probably have more of these, but we also have some very large shade structures. So not everybody has to be out baking in the sun. We're actually going to add more than what we're showing in this. We only show 4 very large ones. But that's basically the entire facility is fenced in for control purposes. We'll have some trees and some other things, landscaping in there as well. So any other questions about the pool? I could talk about the indoor components too, but if you have any questions about the pool?
Just one question about the indoor. Will it have a retractable roof or no?
No. We've decided it's a little bit of budget. We have a lot of natural light flooding in the space, which we think is important, makes the experience about swimming indoors. If you've ever been in a pool that doesn't have windows, it's not a very pleasant experience. And if you're going to be in there either learning to swim or on a swim team where you're practicing for 2 hours straight, we like a lot of natural light, but we have not looked specifically at any kind of retractable roof. They are fairly expensive. But we have a lot of natural light coming in from both the north side and the south side. One of the nice features, we will have doors that will, of course, allow patrons to go, even when the outdoor pool's open, the indoor pool might also be open. That's an operational decision, but you can certainly walk back and forth. They're at the same level. You can move back and forth between those pools. So it just gives you even more opportunities to get out of the sun during the summer if you're planning to be in the outdoor pool. So,
one thing you'd mentioned, the fee aspect of it. This facility, by design, is geared to be affordable. The recreational aspect is affordable for all.
That's correct.
That's why we're building it. We're building this for everyone to enjoy, and the recreational aspect will be very affordable. If it wasn't, we'd be defeating the purpose. And so again, it's a very, it's done the right way, but it's going to be affordable.
That's correct. Any questions about the inside?
Where's the weed near for people like me outside?
Okay, no, that's.
In your car.
In my car.
Are we still going to have the pickleball and the volleyball courts inside as well?
Yes, they're a little hard. This image is a little kind of whited out a little bit, but if you get up close, we have that very large square that is labeled gymnasium. Oh, thank you for blowing it up. There we go. That's the existing warehouse of the Axiom facility. It's got a really nice tall space. It's got a clear story. It will not require a significant amount of renovation other than really cleaning it up and painting it and then putting in a new sports flooring. But you can kind of see the light lines all the way around. We have a jogging track that encircles the entire space. And then within this space, we have 12 pickleball courts and 8 volleyball courts. So it'll provide plenty of indoor activity space. And of course, it can also then be used for weekend tournament play in terms of attracting groups from even outside of town that will come in and use a facility, rent and use a facility like this.
Where is the stadium in the gymnasium?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you.
I'm sorry. Where is the stadium? Like, where can people sit?
In terms of the gym space?
Yes.
We've thought for a tournament, we have a significant, again, it's kind of hard to tell because of the lightness of the drawing, but because of the existing structure, we have a lot of area around all of the different courts. And so there will be, if we use tip and roll bleachers, they can be placed, for at least tournament play, they can be placed all around the jogging track. And then they can also be placed between kind of an east-west row between each of those rows of gyms. So we've got plenty of room for the seats. We're just not showing them illustrated at this time. But yeah, it'll support a number of people both playing and watching in that big gym space, but for tournament play primarily. So
yeah, we had a pickleball tournament in town this past weekend.
You play?
Yeah, Expo. No, I can't play. I'm not very good. Nobody wants to be on their team.
Imagine that.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Council, any other questions?
As I was looking through the presentation, there is a roads component that apparently is a part of this.
We have one road that comes into the back of the property now. We will have to dress it back up. Then we will have to build a road from the roundabout to the south, to the front of the building.
Due
Yes.
south with another roundabout and then an outlet coming out.
Maybe not. This is the main one in,
Yeah.
and then the main one out.
Okay.
That may or may not happen at this point. But that's the way in, that's the way.
Okay, okay, all right, very good. And,
Future road, you're using that way.
okay, and that's been factored in?
Yes, sir.
That to our cost?
Well, not in this cost. That'll be a street department.
Street
of some-
department.
Yes. Something of the sort. Okay, no further questions? Ms. Hurd?
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Yes.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Ms. Mill?
Aye.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
And the emergency clause. Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Yes.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Those both pass 8-0.
And Mr. Mayor, I would like to say this is a vote to put this on the ballot for the people to vote
Yes,
on.
this will be the people's
That's all.
decision.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this will be up to the people of Conway if they want to build an aquatic center and a soccer facility. And pickleball and racquetball and several other things at no additional cost. Thank you very much.
I'd
Yes,
like
Ms.
to
Tucker.
say one thing, for right now, one thing.
Yes, sir.
I am so glad that we're getting a swimming pool in Conway. I've been here all my life, and we hadn't had one. Not for everyone, and this would really be a plus for the kids in Conway, not just adults, but for the kids in Conway to have something to do.
I agree. If the voters approve it, then we're on our way, Mr. Jones, something we've been needing for a long time.
Mr. Jones, I would like to volunteer to give you swim lessons when you're ready.
Mr. Hawkins, I hate to tell you this, but I used to be a lifeguard.
You're always talking about and you never were able to swim.
Maybe I can help you out.
Miss Isby said she would swim, but she wants floaties on her own.
I will learn how to swim if this passes in this pool.
Well, thank you, council. We will move forward with this to the people of Conway. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance appropriating insurance proceeds for code enforcement and the physical plant department, and we have an ordinance to read for this item. It's ordinance 021-118.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 8-0, and we have Mr. Spencer Clausen here.
Well, it sounds like it's already kind of taken care of, but we just had an insurance check get put in the general fund. I need it back so I can pay the good people at Mickey's Collision for the work they did on our code enforcement truck, so. Anyway. I was just saying that, this is, this amount of money, it's $1,732.06 of insurance proceeds. It needs to be shuffled from the general fund into code enforcement's vehicle maintenance account, to pay some, people for some body work done to one of our trucks. So,
Thank you, Mr. Clausen.
yep, thank you.
Make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion?
We need to waive the readings.
We did.
We did.
Did?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Ms. Hurd.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Passes 8-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance requesting to annex 30.27 acres located south of Lower Ridge Road, east of East German Lane, and that the zoning be an R1 zoning. We have an ordinance to read for this item. It's ordinance 021-119.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 8-0. Mr. Walden, would you let the folks at home know what we're talking about here? And
Yes.
the folks in the audience.
This annexation will yield, it's going to be zoned R1, which is for residential single family. So they're intending to develop we think, a subdivision in this location. It's just east of where Mr. Howcrafton is currently developing a subdivision as well. This will yield probably between 130 and 175 lots as well. So continue to see a lot of development on the east side of town, but just another annexation. The city's growing.
Make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance to annex 30.27 acres located south of Lower Ridge Road and east of East German Lane to R1. Any further discussion? Ms. Hurd.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Passes 8-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance requesting to rezone .14 acres of property west of 449 Reedy Road. It's presently zoned R1. The requested zoning is an office zoning, O2, and this was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their meeting in October, I believe it was. November 15th, and at that time, the commission voted to forward this to City Council with a recommendation of approval. We have an ordinance for this item. It's ordinance O-21-120.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 8-0. Mr. Walden.
Yes, this application is intended to bring, came to us as a result of a violation notice that we sent out. We're working with the property owner to correct all the issues on the property. The first of which is there's a existing parking lot that is on that site that was not approved. So this first step is to get it zoned correctly for that parking lot with the associated office there, and then we'll take them through the development review process. But it's the O2 zoning is directly in conformance or congruity with the zoning that's with the rest of the site. So we didn't have any public opposition to this either.
Make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? Ms. Hurd.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Passes 8-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is consideration for conditional use permit to allow a kennel in an I-3 zoning district for property located at 1890 South Amity Road. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission, and at that time, they voted to send this on to City Council 6-1 with a recommendation of approval. And they have a lot of conditions on here. There are 14 of them, including signs, and the conditional use expires in 2 years, and hours of operation, staff present at all times, whenever animals are on site. There's a laundry list there for you to read. With that, Mr. James, would you like to talk about that?
Yes. So this site is located in the southeast part of town. So down there at the industrial park, not the old industrial park, but the industrial park in the very southeast part of town. They're seeking to do a kennel in I-3. They could alternatively zone this to C3, but sort of staff recommended that they go in the route of a conditional use permit that essentially directs it to allow us to impose conditions. Oftentimes with kennels, there's a lot of what you would call external effects on the neighboring property, which there were several property owners that came forward that night, both to the east and the west, that did have considerable opposition to this request. Principally, the sort of the staff in working up a recommendation for all of the conditions that were listed in there, it's mainly about trying to condition it to where it mitigates most of those impacts. That's not to say that there still couldn't possibly be impacts that we never know in terms of that, but that's sort of the long and short of it.
Hey, James, can I ask one question? One of the conditions was a staff
Yes, ma'am.
member has to be present or on site when there's animals on site. Does that mean they're spending the night there if there's animals staying, for overnight stays? Okay. All righty.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
And some of that is, obviously, if the applicant can probably speak to their operations, but one of the things that's I think probably the largest concern anytime there's a kennel is barking. And so making sure that there's someone on staff to, if the dogs are outside, to make sure that they're, being controlled, that they're not barking excessively, and additionally, when they're inside, to make sure, nobody gets too crazy and gets injured or anything like that. So,
James, what kind of, since it's zoned I3, I'm thinking there could be some allowable business put there that could be a lot noisier than a kennel. And so are there any, I guess I'm trying to think if it was, what other businesses are allowed, I guess, some maybe that.
well, I3 is probably our most intensive industrial district. So it's located within an industrial park. I think the thing that is a little bit challenging is that we have residential immediately to the east. So, those concerns of neighbors are, I can understand why they would be concerned about it. But it is zoned
Something else could be
I3.
built there and they'd have no.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, that is correct.
That's a very good point, Sheila. Let me ask this follow-up. Do our noise ordinances exclude industrial noise, or is noise noise? I mean, if the noise is causing a disturbance, is that the only thing that matters?
I do not know about our noise ordinances. We did have a condition in there that basically it would couldn't operate in a manner that would impede the quiet enjoyment of adjacent property, such that it wouldn't constitute a nuisance. So that's, Charles can probably elaborate on that, but some of it is about sort of basic principles of tenancy for the adjacent property, and it being determined the nuisance would mean it would have gone through a violation process several times because of noise problems. But it's part of it's just the nature of the use. It's going to be loud. We did have a requirement on there for noise curtains as well. That's something that's intended to help deal with the noise of barking.
Were the residents out there all right with these conditions on here?
The residents?
That one you said that was opposed to?
No.
They
Well,
still...
and I don't know. At a public hearing, typically when a resident comes up to speak, they're speaking generally about the use and not necessarily reviewing the specific conditions. It's typically the applicant that will see the conditions in advance. So it may be not, they weren't even aware of them. I don't know.
I can tell you that the couple that was mostly opposed to it are retired. So they'll be there during the day when the dogs are outside.
How close do they live to this facility?
What would you say?
If you look on the map, they're directly across the street.
100 yards maybe?
Yeah, it's
something like that.
It's pretty close.
100 yards really not that close though.
I'm not very good with distances.
Well,
it may be a little closer than that.
That's a football field.
I just imagine the street width away. So, from property line to property line, 60, 80 feet, something like that.
But if you look at the setup, I believe the dogs will be back behind when they're outside. Will be back behind, away from the street.
Oh, on the other.
Yes.
So on the.
Oh, okay.
So are the people that are requesting this here tonight?
I do not know.
We do have one.
We hear from them?
Yeah, that would be.
So
They can answer a lot more questions than I can.
I am Kevin Miller. So yes, I am the owner.
Well, are you gonna have overnight boarding?
Yes, sir. And we will have someone there just for the safety of the building, for something like that, for the animals.
Yeah, I guess that was the main question I had.
Oh.
And the dogs will be inside it.
Oh, yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
We usually start dinner around 4:35, so they're going to be brought in around that time. And usually we'll have breakfast in the morning. We'll open at 6, but they'll probably be out about 7 o'clock in the morning. So, but we will have staff in each one of the yards just to regulate the barking as much as possible. So,
How many animals are y'all going to house?
starting out, of course, we'll be small. It's hard to say how quick, it's going to grow in Conway. I know there's a large need for it, necessity here, just because we're in Maumelle currently right now. We have a lot of dogs that come from Conway actually to use our daycare and our boarding. I actually have staff that lives here in Conway, so we're kind of excited to have a location here just to support Conway. So.
Well, I got firsthand knowledge of this. I don't have an animal, but my daughter lives in Texarkana and she does this all the time. So I'm just curious.
So your location in Maumelle, you say?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe where you're currently at there and what is around you there and how you fit in?
We have a nursery right next to us, but right directly behind us is a huge apartment complex. So, and we have not had one complaint that has been registered or even told us, so.
Council, I guess we're back to you guys.
Just to put it out there, I will go ahead and make a motion for approval.
I have a motion and a second to approve consideration for a conditional use permit for a kennel in an I-3 zoning district located at 1890 Amity Road. Any further discussion? Oh, is there anybody, I'm sorry, is there anyone that'd like to speak for or against this? Okay. If not, Ms. Hurd? I'm sorry.
The only question I have, and I know your attempt on these conditions, and maybe Charles, this is where you can get involved. Number 2 seems very open-ended. Most of these are quite definite, like hours of operation, a person present, but 2 seems open-ended. What is a nuisance to one person and was excessive to one person is not to someone else. So, I mean, what is excessive? 1 barks, 3 barks, 10 barks, and so I don't know if it's going to cause more trouble than it's worth.
And again, I think that it being a nuisance would have to be judicially determined, correct, Charles?
That's correct, and I'll direct your attention to the Conway Municipal Code, specifically Chapter 744, noise restrictions. Under noise violations, there's a specific section about animals and fowl, so if anyone has chickens, this would apply to you as well. Keeping of an animal or fowl which by causing frequent or long continued noise shall disturb the quiet or comfort of any person in the vicinity. We get those citations written infrequently, and that's ultimately going to be up to a judge to decide whether it rises to that level.
If y'all recall, we did have some complaints from the facility that keeps animals out there off of across from Walmart, off Dave Ward, off Madison Extended. Yeah, Hideaway. We did have some complaints with the neighborhood there.
I think it took like 9 months to get their noise abatement
Okay.
installed.
Okay.
And that was one of the problems, but as I understand it, there hasn't been any issues.
No, there's not in quite some time. That's fair. Is there any, I didn't look at the conditions, is there anything for noise abatement in this facility?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this consideration. If there's no further discussion, Ms. Hurd.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Passes 8-0. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item on the agenda, Mr. Mayor, is ordinance to rezone property at the northwest corner of Dave Ward Drive and South Country Club Road. It presently is zoned O1. The prospective zoning is MF3. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission in October of this year, and at that time, the Planning Commission voted 5-4 to deny this rezoning. This is an appeal of that denial from the Planning Commission. And Ms. Tucker, I think, was on the Planning Commission at that time, weren't you, Ms. Tucker?
Yes, sir.
Very good, thank you. So you'll be able to bring some information to us today. There is an ordinance to read for this item. It is ordinance 021-121.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 8-0. Council, I know that there are people that want to speak to you on both sides of this issue. Are y'all okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, sir, Mr. Jones. Oh, we are. If you would, we will have the group speaking for it to go first. If you would we will give the first person 6 to 7 minutes to quickly lay out everything you have on why we should approve this. Anyone who follows that, if you would, try to keep your comments to 2 minutes if that is something different. If you're here to speak against it, when that group finishes, be the same rules. We'll give you 6 to 7 minutes for the first person, and everyone after that will give you 2 minutes. If you would, when you come to the microphone, state your name and your address for the record, please. At this time, anyone who would like to speak for this, would you please step up?
Hello, my name is David White. I got a map of the zoning. I know it's the way down the path. We have a client looking at putting a multifamily complex on this 16.71 acres. A reason for bringing this back up is it was a narrow decision by the Planning Commission 5-4 to deny this rezone. The Planning Department, they would recommend a rezone of this to MF2, which is 18 units per acre, but not a rezone to MF3, which is 24 units per acre. So the Planning Department was okay with having a multifamily on this property, just not the density that the developer wanted. There is a little bit of MF3 just kind of to the northwest of the New Life Church, and there's a cluster down at the Salem Ward, the Salem Road, Dave Ward Drive intersection. So there's a pretty good cluster of MF3 there. So it's kind of a good place for it. The properties, Dave Ward Drive, the Conway Transportation Department has identified that as a major arterial, and Country Club Road, South Country Club Road, the Conway Transportation Department identifies that as a minor arterial. So as far as traffic-wise, this is the best place to put this, at the corner of a major arterial, minor arterial. The Dave Ward's Drive built for this traffic. South Country Club Road, if it's not already built, Conway has plans to enlarge it to get it up to minor arterial standards. So from a traffic, there shouldn't be any problems from a traffic point of view. Diane Lane, we had some complaints from the Planning Commission on Diane Lane. There's a small sliver of land, as you can see, that jets out to Diane Lane. It would be foolish to put traffic from a multifamily on Diane Lane. We're only proposing at most as an emergency access, which would just be fire trucks and the other kind of emergency vehicle, and there would be a gate and a perimeter fence around it that would keep the regular traffic off of Diane Lane from this complex. Same thing, the New Life Church had some security concerns. Same thing, there'll be a perimeter fence on the north between the New Life Church and this, and that way the foot traffic can be controlled. And if the New Life Church wants to go any further, they can install a gate over this access they have through the property to keep the apartment traffic out of the New Life Church, but still allow the New Life Church to use the access running through there. There is 18 parallel parking spots along the access lane there that goes from Dave Ward Drive to the New Life Church, and of course we will have to use that for our access also. So we'll have driveways, roads come out to that, and they'll lose some of that 18 parking spots. But the Conway Planning Department, I've done another multifamily in Conway at the south end of Covington Drive, and they've been real gracious about allowing us to go over the required number of parking spots for multifamily. So 1.5 to 2 spots per unit, and they've allowed us to go over the 2 parking spots for units. So parking wise, it'll be available to the New Life Church if they need to come and use the parking for this multifamily complex. Are there any questions? The planning department, they want between 1.5 to 2 parking spots per unit of a duplex or a multifamily. So, like I said, and they have unofficially allowed us to go over the two parking spots per unit. So we'll go a little bit over, which is always a good idea. And that excess parking, the New Life Church they're welcome to come down and use that parking if they need it.
Any other questions, Mr. White?
I'm not sure I've ever heard anybody tell us that somebody else is gonna lose 18 spots if we put our thing in. It's kinda new.
Well, they have a access easement where you can see kinda on the road. However, there's not a parking easement there. But like I said, we're gonna accommodate those 18 spots. We'll have excess parking spots in our development, and they're welcome to come use those 18 spots whenever they need them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. White. Would anyone else like to speak for? Mr. Dyer, this puts you in the 2-minute group.
Do what?
This puts you in the 2-minute group.
Well, I appreciate being here. I'm gonna come at this a little different perspective. He tells you what they're gonna do on the property. They're gonna try to fill Dyer 3270 Notre Chapel Road.
That's my bad, thank you.
Thank you. And that road is still the worst road in Conway.
We're working on it, we're gonna get there.
Now, I've heard that for 18 years.
You've only heard it 5 years from me, so just hang on.
Okay, I believe in you. All right, anyway, I wanna come at this at a more human perspective, in that Conway, and I sent every one of you a video. Did y'all get the video?
Yes.
Did you get the video to watch it? And that was out of Little Rock, but it involves Conway in a worse way. I've been in the real estate business for 42 years. I have never seen the situation Conway is dire. Excuse the pun, as dire as it is. You can't hardly rent a place in Conway without looking and looking and looking. And some people think, well, that's not true. Well, about 3 or 4 months ago, before I got involved in this project, we had some people come in, wanted a place to rent. And I called 4 or 5 of the major rental places, the apartment complexes. Out of those 4 or 5, I got 3 vacancies. And so I looked that up today, and the vacancy right now in Conway is 1.9%. Now, you tell me, if a major industry wants to look at Conway, are they coming to Conway? They can't. There's no place for anybody to live. They can't rent anything. They certainly can't buy anything. If you got a $150,000 house today and list it with me, I'll sell it for $175,000 tomorrow. That's how bad it is. Everything is going way overpriced. And that's not healthy for Conway, because there's going to be a lot of losers in that game. And I don't like it. I was born here, I'm gonna die here. And this is my town. And if we don't provide housing, that's what we're talking about, providing housing. I don't know where we're gonna be in 10 years. Last 10 years, we grew like 16, 17%. If we do that the next 10 years, we're gonna have close to 85,000 people. We're building 200 houses a year. We're building maybe 800 apartments a year. You can do the math. We ain't got no place for people to live. And where are they going? They're going to Greenbrier. They're going to Bologna. They're going to Mayflower. They're going to Maumelle. It's just a sad situation. And yeah, I have a dog in the hunt. If they buy it and get it, I get paid. Yay, I get paid. 4 months of doing this, I get paid. But that's not my main reason. My main reason, I don't need the money. I mean, I'm not bragging. I'm working I'm 72 years old. I don't have to work, but I'm working because Conway is in a situation where they got to have more housing. And everything that's come through has come up MF2. Well, now we're in a situation where we ain't got enough housing to accommodate the needs of the people. So what are you going to do? You know, I don't know of a better location for this. I know that Bill Brown don't like it, and I don't blame him. I wouldn't like it if it was my front yard either. But I live on 5 acres on the edge of the city with nothing but land around me, and I'm going to face the same thing one day. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I'm going to face it if I live that long. But Bill's there's another little 5 acre right in front of his house that to my knowledge is not going to be developed, is it? So, and there's no MF3 property to go to on the west side. Not one, except what the church owns, New Life Church. That's the only MF3 property on the side of town. So, which is fine, but that sits way off the road. So, don't have any questions? I mean, I could go on and on about if we get 24 units an acre, the rent's going to be lower. We get 18 units an acre, the rents are going to be higher. It's that simple. Average rent in Conway is $750. 88% of those people that rent pay between $500 and $1,000. You get over $1,000, it drops to 7%. You know, I don't know what this new place out here, Fontainebleau, they're going to be like $1,250. Good luck. I mean, how many here want to pay that kind of money in rent? I don't care how nice it is. You know.
Thank you, Mr. Dyer. Do y'all have any questions of Mr. Dyer, council? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dyer.
Thank you. Sorry it took so long.
No, you're okay. Would anyone else like to speak for? Just so you won't think I'm rude, I let that go a little too long, so I'll probably be a little bit more on the clock.
You're just fine. You just let me know when I start getting close, okay?
All right, thank you.
All right, I'm Megan Weckworth. I'm with the Tyler Group. I'm here to speak on behalf of our client. They're wanting to rezone to MF3. There's been a couple concerns concerning about the traffic flow that's out there. I want to say one thing, City of Conway is growing like crazy, and they're very progressive about thinking about traffic flow. Even whenever roundabouts started coming into Conway, everybody was against the roundabouts, and they put them in, and traffic has not flowed any better since they've been put in. Dave Ward Drive, whenever it was improved, they put in the median, everybody was against it, and I tell you what, Dave Ward Drive zooms right through. It has helped tremendously through there. There used to be a lot of bottlenecking going on there. You don't see that until you get close to the interstate where everybody's trying to get on there. But those roundabouts on the other side over there by Lewis Crossing, beautiful. There's never one time that you're hardly stopped there for more than 2 seconds. It's great. And for this MF3, I would say same thing. Dave Ward Drive is going to be a great place for this kind of density and traffic flow. It's going to handle it great. I want to compare Dave Ward Drive kind of to like a stream with fish, almost. Whenever you pull out, it's going to be a right-hand turn. As soon as you pull out, you can turn left and be able to go the opposite direction, and it handles it beautifully. We also want to make sure that we handle all the concerns of our neighbors. We want to be good neighbors, develop a beautiful community. That way, the growing city of Conway can have somewhere that they can live. One thing that came up at the Planning Commission was a security risk for New Life. We want to make sure we build up a fence so there's no unwanted foot traffic that causes any security issues for them. Diane Lane, also to expound upon that, there won't be any kind of traffic coming from the multifamily onto Diane Lane. It'll just be using just Dave Ward as well as the traffic signal there at the corner of Country Club and Dave Ward. That's it for me. Megan Weckworth. Oh, 240 Skyline Drive. It's Tyler Group. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak for? Okay, we will close that portion of it. We will now open the floor to anyone who would like to speak against. If you would, please state your name and your address, and you've got between 6 and 7 minutes.
Gotcha. Brian Christian, 2670 Apple Blossom Drive, Conway. Mayor, council members. I represent New Life Church. I'm the executive pastor there. I'm also in-house counsel. And first of all, I wanted to come in and just ask you to affirm the decision of the Planning Commission. We put those people there for a reason. You know, we trust their judgment. They ruled against this move from the O1 to the MF3. One of the primary reasons that hasn't been discussed so far that we would object to the density level there is, first of all, overnight visitor parking in that area would be impossible to accommodate within the planned development. For that kind of density, if we're looking at 2 parking spots per unit, there's going to be overnight visitor parking, and I brought it up in the Planning Commission. If we looked at, say, Centerstone, where we have Moix Drive, which is not a thoroughfare, if you drive up and down Moix Drive any given night, it's lined with visitor parking on both sides. It's not a 2-lane road anymore. And we know that the only place that these visitors are going to park from this current planned development would either be Diane Lane, Country Club Drive. They're not going to park on Dave Ward. The access point into New Life Church's parking lot, would be burdened with visitor parking, number one, but also our parking lot would be burdened with overnight visitor parking, which would be trespassing if for somebody to use that wasn't there for a reason for New Life Church. The other concerns brought up is we do have a Little Life Academy, which is a school, a preschool there that takes care of up to 200 students per day. And whereas we well vet, the people that come in and out of our building with background checks and all of that kind of stuff, you wouldn't be able to do that with that many people in a multifamily development. Now, let me tell you what we are for. What we are for is current O1. We are also for the analogous retail zoning in that area. We would be for MF2 if we got some kind of solid plan for the issues that we're talking about. The burdening of our access point from Dave Ward, the burdening of our parking lot with overnight visitor parking. None of that stuff has been provided for us. There's been no discussion about what that development would look like. We only have, as an example, to look at would be existing MF3 that's in town, most of which I would say is at least 1 block off of Dave Ward, except for the older complexes that have been in town for many, many years. And so for us to put a multifamily 3 right on Dave Ward, where we don't have any kind of provision for visitor parking would be devastating to us. We'd have to 24-hour security, a tow truck, ready to go just to take care of our parking lot. Not to mention the traffic up and down the access point, like who would be burdened with the maintenance of that thoroughfare there. We talk about fencing and all that, but that doesn't take care of everything. We still know that just from the existing complexes we have. But MF2 would probably work in that area for us if we understood how they would be taking care of the burdens that we're looking at, shouldering from our location. Any questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak against? Okay, at this time, I'm sorry.
Hello, my name is Jill Turner. I live at 725 Diane Lane. I'm here to represent my mom, Gigi Hambeacon, and my sister, Gina Hambeacon. They also live on Diane Lane. We have lived on Diane Lane for over 40 years. We have seen the growth of West Conway in that area. The field across the street is not the spot for these apartments. The traffic is already congested on Dave Ward with the 2 churches with their traffic, New Life Church and Central Baptist, Triple C customers, the new subdivision across the street that Hal Crafton has developed, and of course the Walmart traffic. If you approve these apartments, I can't imagine, sorry, I'm nervous. I can't imagine the jam traffic that will occur. When you're driving 50 miles an hour, which is the speed limit on Dave Ward, and you have to turn, cars are slamming on their brakes because there's no road to merge onto. You almost get clipped from behind. The crime and safety is another issue. With this amount of apartments being proposed, you can only imagine what comes with it. We are a quiet neighborhood on Diane Lane. Put yourself in our shoes. Would you be happy to have this large of an apartment complex across the street from you? And that's all I have.
You did good.
Sorry for it. I'm so nervous. Goodness.
Jim would have been proud of you.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Okay. At this time, council, we will close taking questions. I'm sorry. Yes, sir. No, are you speaking for or against, sir? Okay.
Thank you. My name is Adam Crawford, and I live at 651 Diane Lane. And since originally I thought I had 2 minutes or 3 minutes, I'm going to go a little bit faster. So there's been some conversation that's already been asserted here that allowing access to the proposed apartment complex on Diane Lane is foolish, and I kind of come here to reinforce that. We just had a little conversation about how quickly folks tend to be moving down Dave Ward Drive. That's absolutely the case. I would like to attest that until I moved to Diane Lane, I didn't even know it existed. And most of the folks who are going down Dave Ward don't know it exists either. So you're heading down that way, all you really know is that you're one stoplight away from being out of town. And at the end of the day, folks tend to be in a hurry. They're either trying to get to Walmart and get home, or they're trying to get to that stoplight and they're trying to get home. They may not be aware that someone in front of them, potentially with the kids in the back of the car, is trying to make a safe turn onto a road that they don't know is there. Now, there's been some concession made, and I'm glad to hear that maybe Diane Lane might not be used for access to the apartment complex, but that is not what we were told at the City Planning Commission. And as a resident of Diane Lane, I can say that there has not been a good faith effort made to engage with us to address our concerns about that and our concerns about safety. So I realize that there may be some opportunities with this development, but there's also some burdens to the folks who already live here. And I would very much appreciate it if the council would keep in mind those burdens when they're evaluating the decision that the planning committee made. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak against?
Hello, council. I'm Bill Brown. I live at 783 Diane Lane. I've lived there since '84, and Bart can testify. He came up and did a little plumbing for me back when he was in the plumbing business.
I was a lot younger, Bill.
I've been there a long time. I saw, guineas fly across the road there years ago when I moved in. It's not like that anymore. When I did my U-turn to come back downtown today, traffic on Diane Lane was backed up from Hogan past Diane Lane. And when I started the business years ago, my location was 800 feet east of Hogan Road. So I know that was over 800 feet of cars backed up. It's there. People have said tonight, traffic's not. I live out there. I assure you, traffic's there. I hear brakes. I've seen 3 wrecks at the corner of Diane. It's there. And I hope the Paladinos sell the property. It's been on the market a long time. I've got 3 acres in Benton the same way. It's been on the market 12 years. It's commercial property. But the roundabouts have a way to change things. Traffic flow is important. And when they made Diane Lane, it was an express route. That's what it was designed for. The story was in 2000, hey, this is a bedroom community. We work in Little Rock. We do whatever. We use Diane Lane and Express, 50 miles an hour out there. Do 50 and stop at an intersection real quick. That's when you have your wrecks. But I'm talking against it, and I am glad to see that they did revise after the city planning meeting that they're not going to open up traffic on Diane, which would be a real fiasco. But, you know, thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Yes, ma'am.
I'm nervous too.
You don't need to be nervous. We're all Conway folks here.
My name is Ann Madison. I live at 3411 Dave Ward Drive. And I think I'm very much concerned about the traffic since I actually live on Dave Ward. The traffic is horrible. For the people who say it runs smoothly, it doesn't. I hear traffic all the time. Of course, I've been there 43 years and it was nothing like that. And I understand about progress, but I hope you sympathize with the ones who are living on Dave Ward that will be affected by this complex. I don't understand how they figure that the traffic won't be bad when it's already bad at this point. Now, when they come out on Dave Ward and turn right, they're gonna turn at that U-turn. That's still traffic, still traffic. So that's a lot of parking. When they say so many per unit, that's a lot of cars, plus visitors. So I just hope you all will consider our position. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Madison. Okay, anyone else like to speak against? Okay, at this time, council, I'll bring it back to you. We've already had a motion and a second to waive 3 readings. So
Hi, Mayor,
your
can I
wishes,
ask
council.
James something real quick? Hi, Mayor, can I ask James something real quick?
Yes, James.
Hey, James, if that land was rezoned MF2, how many, can you refresh our memory on how many apartments can go per acre in a MF2?
The difference, couldn't give you an exact calculation because it's going to vary based on the conditions of the site, but the difference is 18 units per acre versus 20.
Okay, and we're looking at maybe 18 on this piece of property per acre as one of the, okay, 24.
24, so the appeal is
From
to
MF2.
MF3. Yeah, so
Okay.
it's, yeah. Well,
Yes.
no, it's currently zoned 01. Staff had recommended, the reason MF2 keeps coming
I
up, staff
see.
had recommended.
So it's going from 18 to 24. It's going to be 24
Mary,
units per acre right now with the MF3, correct? Okay.
Correct.
Mary, it would be about a difference of 100 units.
Yes, sir.
For that property.
I'm more worried about the amount of
16 acres.
the amount of cars. I know, 2 cars per unit, but if it is college students, usually they have friends over and so forth, and usually they generate more than 2 cars per unit, typically. But that's just some of my thinking on it.
So, James, is that the standard 2 cars per unit for MF3?
It's going to vary depending on the complex, but yeah, I mean that's what we require.
Okay.
Do we know if all of these units are going to be 2-bedroom?
No, so at the time of rezoning, and that brings up, I think, probably a good point to make is with it being rezoned, there are no conditions that would be attached. If this perhaps were brought back as a PUD, and let's say neighbors had concerns, access via Diane Lane, access to the New Life parking lot, dealing with the ingress and egress to New Life, those are all conditions that could be, the applicant and, adjacent property owners could sit down and work some of those issues out if it were, for instance, a PUD.
Thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Walton? Okay, council, it's back to you. Yes, sir.
Planning Commission, is it a yes vote or a no vote? Since they
There's not been a motion made. There's been all we've done is waive 3 readings. There's not been a motion.
So it would be based on the motion?
Yes, ma'am. And a second.
I mean, my suggestion would be to make an affirmative motion, and then that way there's no question. If you vote for, you're voting for doing it, and if you vote against, you're voting against.
That's correct.
Doing it. It's always easier for me to make an affirmative motion and then vote for or against that.
So if we vote this down tonight, they can't bring it back for a year? Is that
Correct.
right? Unless we waive that.
Yes. Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, that's correct. The waiver would be by 2/3 vote, if y'all chose to do that.
So if I need to make a motion to oppose the planning commission's vote.
You need to make a motion to adopt this ordinance, and then you vote yes or no. A yes vote would be that they would get to do it, the MF3, and a no vote would be no. That we, yeah.
I'm sure all of you have done the math, but 384 units, 2 bedrooms each, that's 768 people and parking places, if they all have cars.
It's back to the council now, Mr. Dyer.
Go ahead, you can go ahead.
I was gonna say, several folks, including Mr. Christian, you said you're agreeable to talking about MF2 and other conditions. I mean, James, if it goes back to a PUD, then folks can get together and talk and see if they can work something out. If they can, great. If they can't, then stays as is.
Let me say something. We had this problem before, trying to piecemeal something. We need to vote on the issue that we have here. Because that's what happened before. We had something, we went on and on and on and on about trying to help somebody and trying not to help somebody. We need to vote on what's on the agenda tonight. And they can go back to the planning commission if they want.
In a year.
Yeah, that's what happened before. Remember, we spent 2 hours talking about something that we shouldn't have spent that long.
My understanding is they can't make it work unless they get the MF3 zoning, as far as the price of the land and so forth. So, I mean, I know that's probably where they're coming from, that they're gonna have to have the MF3 in order to buy the property. Not to say we need to approve it or anything, I'm not saying that. It's just, I don't know what the land's going for or anything like that, but I think an R1 zoning or MF2 isn't feasible, from my understanding, so just for what it's worth.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Okay, council, there may or may not be a motion, so at this time I will take a motion if anyone so moves.
I'll make a motion in the affirmative to approve.
Okay. Second. We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance to rezone property located at the northwest corner of Dave Ward Drive and South Country Club Lane Road from O1 to MF3. A yes vote will be to allow it. A no vote will be to basically uphold what the planning commission recommended that we deny.
And Theo, I'll go along with exactly what you suggest, because that's the cleanest way to do it. I'm gonna vote no to rezone it, but I would encourage the parties to get back together and see if they can work out.
Yeah, I'm 100% for that, but like I said the last time, we spent 2 hours trying to help them and help the other people, and we should just vote on what's on the agenda. I remember correctly, it might have been an hour and 45 minutes.
Ms. Hurd?
Mr. Jones?
No.
Mr. Hawkins?
No.
Ms. Mel?
No.
Ms.
No.
Tucker?
No.
Ms. Smith?
No.
Ms. Isby?
No.
Mr. Ledbetter?
No.
Mr. Grimes?
No.
Okay, that fails 8-0. My suggestion would be y'all get back together and see if you can work out something different. Thank you, everyone, for your time on this issue. Mr. Hawkins.
Let's see, Mr. Mayor, that moves us to, I think, the last item. And that's consideration to modify conditional use permit number 1398 to allow a religious facility located at 1301 Sunset Drive. And Mr. Walden, you have stepped forward. You must want to talk about this.
Well, I don't have to.
I'd love for you to.
Okay. I'm happy not talking. Yes, if this looks familiar, this is because you all reviewed this last year. So some background on this. One church has been attempting to purchase the property. They went through the process of obtaining a conditional use permit. Part of that, at that time, was the idea that they would have access from the south, from the neighborhood Walmart parking lot, and then additionally secondary access from Sunset Drive. Fast forward some months, the planning department, transportation department, and the applicant were working together to communicate with Walmart to see about obtaining that access. The property, and Mr. Shaw probably will comment on this later, the Baker property does have access to the Walmart lot, but it is intended for residential. So there's some debate about depending on which party, about the legality of that. In terms of the discussions with Walmart, Walmart was very much not amenable to that, which essentially left that to the point of eminent domain. Essentially, the city would have to eminent domain the property in order to make a connection. So all of that played out. Based on that, we kind of got to an area where we felt we were at a no in terms of that discussion. The applicant went back to the drawing table, came back with a conditional use permit application solely with access off of Sunset Drive. Advised the applicant that given that change was significant, that we knew that there was some neighborhood opposition at that point, then we said you need to come back, go through the process. The staff recommendation was for denial based on its location. However, we also additionally provided the conditions of its previous approval by Planning Commission. It was voted in the positive by Planning Commission, and so it's moved up to here. So with that, that's kind of the nutshell of the history on the case. There were public opposition to it, on this at the public hearing as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Walden. In council, there are folks here on both sides of this issue. If it's okay with this council, we will allow them to speak. We will start with those who are speaking for. Same rules, Mr. Shaw.
Yeah, I understand. I'm Frank Shaw from 1315 Main Street, and I'm going to yield my time to the pastors, and then if I could save my time, I'll wrap it up with some history of how we got to where we are on this.
That'll put you in the 2-minute group now, Frank. 2 minutes.
I can't do it. You know I can't do it. Yeah. I'm yielding my time. I'm not passing. I'm yielding the floor.
Yes, sir. Step up.
Pastor Paul.
Good evening, council. I just want to thank you for your time. I genuinely appreciate what you guys do. And to be honest, I would not want to have to make all the decisions that you make. I have the utmost respect for what you do.
Name and address, please, sir.
Paul Hudson, Billy Paul Hudson, but only my grandma who has passed and my wife can call me Billy. You can call me Paul. 2440 Little Creek Drive. I love what I do as a pastor, and I speak and do counseling. One of my masters in counseling. I love people, but believe it or not, I'm nervous because of the gravity of this. So I'm going to read what I wrote, but please don't let that mean that it's any less sincere. I want to begin by saying thank you for your time and your consideration. I do not take lightly or for granted the amount of heart and effort that it takes to serve in your capacity, as we've seen this evening. A little over a year ago, the City Planning Commission, you, voted to approve our conditional use permit for this property that we know that God has set aside for one church. If you've ever seen it, it is absolutely phenomenal. However, we had to change our conditional use permit, and following the advisement of the city staff, which I'm extremely grateful for James Walden and his staff, here's what we have done. We went back upon their advisement and we met with the fire marshal's department. And walking through our new site plan, they have reviewed it, and with the fire marshal's staff, all of our plans meet all of the city fire code. Everything falls in line. Secondly, we went before the city planning, and while I respect the staff's negative vote for that, the City Planning Commission voted yes, as they heard all of the details and all of the facts, and I'm extremely grateful for that. Now I stand back before you again and ask you to affirm what the Planning Commission has voted on, and then what you had voted on previously. If I may, I would like to answer a question: why there? Why not somewhere else? You see, my wife and I moved here 21 years ago. I was born on a pig farm in Kansas. I stepped out of the business world to become a pastor. 21 years ago, Christy and I moved here on Toad Suck weekend, and nobody told us anything. I had the privilege of serving at Second Baptist Church for 10 years. I loved those people in that church, and some of the greatest years of my life were there, and I love those people. But 11 years ago, God called my wife and I to start a church. And so we did. We stepped out on faith, and we started a church called One Church. And from the beginning of what we have done, every bit of the amount of outreach that we've done in our community, and I'm telling you, we have filled homes with smoke detectors for free. We have filled up people's cars with gas. We have done yard cleanup. We have tried to faithfully present the gospel in what we say and how we live in that area specifically. I can tell you, whether it is last year we did an Easter egg hunt on the Saturday before Easter, and we had over 20,000 eggs. And when you have that many plastic eggs in Gatlin Park, you just kind of spread them out. The kids just kind of pick them up. But there were so many kids from the neighborhood that they picked 20,000 eggs up in less than 4 minutes. I could go on and on and on about that, but here's the deal. We as One Church people, we have spent hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars loving that community right there. When God called Christy and I to step out and start a church, it was not because we thought nobody else knew what to do. It was not because we thought there was a better way to do it. I even had offers to go somewhere else. The reason we felt called to start a church here in Conway is because we love this city and we love these people. I know that I've only been here for 21 years, which is not very long for most of you, but I will live and die here. And I will tell people about Jesus as long as I can. What I'm asking you to do is to affirm the decision that had been made. We look forward to making this place at Gatlin Park our home. In regards to the people in and around Gatlin Park, we will be able to serve them better and more when our home is there. In regards to the park, we will honor our previous agreement with the city by giving them easement to make the walking trail from Tucker Creek all the way over to the school. We simply want to build One Church in the heart of where we do local ministry. We are not looking for a place to meet. We're looking for a place to make One Church home. A home that will allow us to be the church that we feel like God has called us to be, in the community that we love, in the town that we love. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Do you have any questions for me?
I'm sorry. Kent, I see you coming up back there.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Kent Baker. I live at 2625 Adamsbrook Drive, and I'm here not only to speak for myself, but I speak for my mom. She's the one who owns the property. And when I spoke to the Planning Commission, I tried to speak about all the positives that my mom has done with that property that they purchased over 40 years ago. When the city had traffic problems on Prince Street, they approached my mom about, we need to widen Prince Street. So my mom gave the city the property they needed along Prince Street to help, to assist in widening Prince Street. And at the same time, they said, well, it would be great if we could extend Ferris Road and tie into the school and help relieve some of that traffic. So my mom said, you know what? I'll just give you the property that you can extend Ferris Road and tie into the school. So all this was done by my mom to help assist the city in developing that property. Now, at the same time, she did sell 8 acres of that property to Walmart, and several of you guys were on the council back then, Andy and David and Theo and Sheila and Mary, and of course, Ann, you were on the planning commission. You guys assisted greatly in getting all that done, and we believe that's all been really positive, that little block of land right there. She's left with that 7.5 acres on the back. That property did go all the way down to Tucker Creek, and then when the city decided that they wanted to connect Gatlin Park to Pompey Park, my mom, she moved the fence. She gave the city the portion that they needed for the walking trail so they could extend that walking trail. And she is in agreement with the church that once y'all approve this again, that they would give a portion of the land between that 7 acres and the neighborhood market to extend that walking trail from where it's at now over to the school to, help with the flow of the walking traffic there. And so we just ask that you, approve this again so that she can sell this property to the church. I mean, she firmly believes that that piece of property with a church on it will have a greater impact on anything she's ever done with that piece of property right there. And I appreciate your time and your service, all you guys that's been here a while. Appreciate you.
Hey, do y'all have any questions for Kent? Thank you, Kent. Anyone else like to speak for? I think I know your name.
Yes, sir. Don Chandler, Senior Pastor, Central Baptist Church. I think I have tenure among the pastors in Conway. At least I've been here 40-plus years, and watched the landscape of the churches through the years. And I certainly can't say that 100% of every church built in every place has benefited the area in which they were in. But I can say by and large, most of the churches benefit the area, don't curse the area that they build in. Unlike some, Central Church has not built a fence around our property. We've allowed people to let their children play. People use our pavilion. They walk their dog. They run. They walk. They do whatever they want to on our church property. In fact, we've recently built a Frisbee golf course, and don't ask me to explain the rules, but kids from everywhere are coming, and there's never less than 5 or 6 or 7 cars on a nice day when college kids and high school kids are there. My point is, I think we've made our area a better place by building the facility we did and allowing people to use that. So I've known Paul Hudson and many of the people in his church for a number of years. I've seen that they have a heart for that area. I have seen that they have had difficulty getting into that area but have not given up. They've persevered in all the right ways. They've been kind and gracious and generous to do whatever they've been asked, but their heart is there. And I just want to affirm that what little complication the church might cause in that area, it will be overwhelmingly a benefit and a blessing to that area to just have people there who care about the homes, care about the people, care about the kids, and care about making that a better place than it even is right now. Anything else built there would bring more traffic than a church just on Sunday mornings. Anything else there would endanger, as it got older, what happened in the community. A church won't do those things. And so I would just encourage you, as others spoke for us 21 years ago when we built on Ward Drive, I just encourage you to allow them to fulfill their heart's great desire and be a part of that.
Thank you, Reverend Chandler. Anyone else like to speak for?
Well, yeah.
Frank, how many fingers am I holding up?
I don't have the glasses with me, I'm so sorry. Will soon have been on this project with one church 2 years. Mayor, you signed this on 5/28/2020. We started on it a long time before that. They have not quit. The anomaly that we're dealing with here that is not anything that I've seen, and I've been here a while, is Ferris Road doesn't go to the back of Walmart's property. Now, I've done some development, been around. You always have to stub a street out, stub a street out, stub. Walmart gets to stop their street, Ferris Road, your street, at the front of their building. That's the problem. It's an anomaly. If it went to the back of their property, we wouldn't even be here. We'd have to get a conditional use permit. They'd have access. We worked with Walmart for months and months and months. Now, I'm not talking bad about Walmart particularly because when Pompey Park was first owned by Frank Pompey, I represented Walmart and brought it to this council to rezone 8 acres of that for Walmart neighborhood market, give 12 to the city. With your decision, you denied that. And then I represented Frank Pompey, that's why it's Pompey Park, when he sold it to the city. Then we went next door and neighborhood market wouldn't fit on Clara's property. Her property was a little narrow for their footprint. So they modified it, came back and bought it from Clara. But she had already given the right of way to the schools and so forth to get in and out on Ferris Road. The church, the Presbyterian church on the corner, came at that meeting and said, you know, it's a lot of noise for church services. So they're banned from deliveries on Sunday. I believe that's by ordinance. If I'm mistaken, I'm just wrong, but that's what I remember. They can't deliver on Sunday. They want to have church on Sunday, but Walmart won't open the street. The way the agreement reads is if Clara sells it for residential uses, and it doesn't say what, could be MF3, then they have to open the street up for her. Why they want to open it for a church, but they would for apartments of any character, high end, low end, whatever end, is beyond me. But we're worn out working with them. We asked the city to consider eminent domain and take it. So that would tie Bellmead to Ferris Road because Bellmead's dead end, Ferris Road's dead end, and where 2 streets dead end, you need to hook them together. But that hasn't happened, and that's okay with us. We're wondering if we get this approved, if they'll open it for them. They ought to. You know they ought to. They ought to do that. There's no deliveries on Sunday to Walmart. So I've been involved in this particular location for a decade or two. I've been working with Clara Baker for as long as I've known her. She's given and given and given and given to the city for y'all's purposes, and they're good purposes. A lot of this is in the floodplain. It's going to remain green space. It's going to tie into Gatlin Park. It will extend our park system and green space from the old Briarwood Pool all the way through town. Now, Paul Hudson, you heard him speak. He's a great guy.
Seconds, Frank.
And I'm going to wrap it up now after bragging on the preacher, okay? All right. Thank you so much for your time. I'd ask you to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Why didn't I do what for Walmart? Well, I had them in a position they were going to give the city 12 acres. And they were going to keep 8, which is what they bought from Clara. But it's a beautiful park, and that's why it's called Pompey Park, because that was part of Mr. Pompey's deal. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else like to speak for? Okay, at this time, we will take anyone who would like to speak against. Did I see a hand back there? No. Okay. Okay, since we have no one that wants to speak against, we will bring it back to the council.
I got a question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Jones.
Is there a way we can open it up for the church?
Yeah, step up, James, would you? I guess my question is, if what Frank told us is that actually is an extension of Ferris, what keeps us as a city from forcing Walmart to open that?
As Frank has said, probably in the past, they got 6 floors of lawyers.
we got a good one though.
We do, we do. What I think one of the questions is in the timing of it. For eminent domain, it has to be a public purpose. And so there might be some level of question as to why now, and is this being done to benefit a private property owner and not to serve a broader public purpose? That would be I think the central question in that if I were someone that opposed it would likely bring up.
I got a question. Is this a public church?
I mean, certainly it's open. I think again, it's kind of, it would be similar as if they were developing it for single family, is that open for people to develop in? I think, Charles, you want to talk about what public purpose, is defined as?
Yeah, this would not be a public purpose. This would be a condemnation to benefit a private entity, the church. Public purpose means it has to benefit the people of Conway in general.
Could be a park. Is there any way that could be access to the park? Would that benefit
The
people
trail
of Conway?
extension?
Now, access to a public park would most likely be a public purpose.
Because one of them said, public access easement shall be provided for a new trail extension across the property to the adjacent high school property. So by approving this, that small, but
Because they're
public
giving
purpose.
us access, they're giving
Right.
the public access
Right.
and Conway High School
Right.
access. I see what you're saying.
I mean, that's the only condition I look at that kind of falls under there. And I wonder too, I noticed the number 11 was scratched off.
Yeah,
The
the reason being is that what they propose is not to access to the south. So
Right.
the proposal that has been provided is to access off Sunset Drive. So if
Right.
you acted, that's what you're acting on. It doesn't mean that in 3 years or 5 years or whenever, if the city decided that it was very important to extend Ferris Road, that couldn't be something that could be looked at that time. But the application that's before you is essentially for the church to build there and have access off Sunset Drive.
Right, and with a nod to Mr. Jones, I don't want to get into I don't want to go down a whole bunch of rabbit holes.
Yeah.
But would Walmart ever allow a gate there every day but Sunday? Meaning it would be closed the rest of the time?
Based on our conversations, they really didn't like the idea regardless. I mean, it was, we definitely came up with a lot.
How many MF3? No, I'm sorry.
So let's say that, I know that one of the biggest concerns for the neighborhood is the amount of construction equipment that'll be going in Sunset and Meadow are both older streets, so that is a concern. What would be our next step, James, if we were to reach out to Walmart and say that this is going to have public access, and then us move forward with extending Ferris Road? What kind of time frame would you think that we are in there, and would that be workable?
I think probably most likely in the vein of the church has been waiting a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So probably what would happen is the church would get constructed and they'd have access off Sunset Drive, and then we would have to work out budgeting that, all those sorts of things in terms of related, because who knows how long the eminent domain process could take. Charles can speak to kind of how some of ours, when we've had someone that was not a willing, not exactly excited about the process, how long that has taken in the past.
Yeah, it can take months, years. And I would note that the legislature this past session has tightened up the rules and has granted property owners a lot more rights. And we would be subject to whatever judge the case was assigned to here in Faulkner County.
Before we continue on, could we hear from the other side, the neighbors?
No one's here, Mr. Grimes.
Oh, well, okay. I didn't hear you call. I'm sorry. Thank you. Well,
So for tonight, if we approve this, the construction and everything's gonna come down Sunset.
There's no way around it.
There's no other
Yeah,
way.
I mean,
And
that-
whatever other option that might involve an additional access somewhere else would have to be after.
Yeah, it would essentially have to be addressed.
I have a question for the pastor. This is for Chief Ledbetter and I, just because we're old retired firemen and we still live in the glory days of the past, something like that. Anyway, you've got one means of ingress and egress. Was the fire marshal okay with that?
Yes, sir. Adam Treese and I sat down with the site plan, and we didn't get to meet with him actually that day. But we met with 3 other gentlemen, and as they all looked at it, we talked about a deadhead in there. We talked about how wide the entrance has to be, where the islands would have to be to make sure the trucks could turn around, how many feet from a fire hydrant has to be, how many fire hydrants we have to have on the property, direct access to the water. They talked through everything with us, and our site plan complies with everything they asked for.
Okay, thank you.
I had asked, hey, would you write us a letter saying, hey, that this complies? And man, they have been great to work with, but they said that's not the process. And I said, I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And I can affirm what he just said. In the amended conditional use permit request that they have, they essentially have put in a hammerhead in there, or modified type of hammerhead. There's a certain radius on that curve that's there that would be capable of serving for fire trucks, for fire apparatus access.
Hey, Mayor, can I ask a question?
Okay.
This may
Yes,
be a
ma'am.
silly question, but if the school district needed another access on the back of their property that's adjacent to this property, could we have access on Ferris Road? I mean, would Walmart have to grant access for a school to need access on the back of their property to get that road open all the way to this property?
We
Do
may
you
need
see what I'm
Finley for
saying?
that one, and he is
I
out of
mean,
state.
if they
Charles,
ask
would you-
that, and
Yeah, I
then
do see what you're
we
saying.
have to grant them access because they're a school, they're not considered a private entity, and we would have to make Walmart go in and open Ferris Road up, to give them access to the back of their school district property. Just want to make sure what I'm saying is clear to y'all, what I'm asking.
So that'd
Well,
be
that
back
way
there
Ferris
by
Road would
the-
have to open up for the
girls'
school district to have
softball
access
or-
to the back of their property.
Yeah.
I mean, Frank
Yeah,
might would
I'm just
know
thinking what's back there.
if for a school district, if we could get Ferris Road open for that reason.
Yeah, the softball, girls softball
Girls
field backs up to
softball,
the fences
yeah.
there. Baseball field.
Well, I didn't know.
No.
The baseball field is right on the edge back there.
softball field backs up to houses, really no room.
Hey,
Just a-
Kent,
just
could
a
you step
thought.
up here for a second, please? Is there any distance between the baseball field and the property we're talking about? That enough for? Is that what you're asking, Mark?
Yeah, there's a little bit of land on the other side of that fence that comes down to where the Walmart property's at. I'm not sure how many feet there is there, but that street, Ferris Road could be shifted just a little bit to take in a pretty good portion of the school property and just a little bit of the Walmart property. Walmart granted my mom an easement if it goes straight, and in Walmart's agreement with my mother, there was a condition wrote in there that they could relocate that easement at their time, any choosing. So, if you could get Walmart to relocate that part of that easement over to that side of the land and take just a little bit of school, you could go right, could tie it into Sunset real easy. Right where you turn to go to school.
Frank, I'm going to ask you to step back up since you handled that. Can you answer Mr. Ledbetter's question?
I'll only answer the questions, I promise.
Okay. You believe him, Don? The original agreement with Walmart.
They could shift the easement over Finley, who, if he were here, would show you that we've had that drawn. We've drawn 2 or 3 different versions of shifting the easement over. You know, it goes due north. We could shift it over just a little curve and get back to this property using some school property. Every option is on the table. If you do an eminent domain, you take it. It's yours when you file it. They could object to it. You may argue over the money for 2 or 3 years, but when you take it, it's yours. The city can take it if it's a public purpose. And they can take it right then, and then the lawsuit is not over whether they can take it, it's over how much you've got to give them. It's all about money. The city has eminent domain, which means you can take anything for a public purpose. And you can do that, and you have that power.
Well, just to clarify, and not because I love to disagree with you, I do. But to clarify, the city has eminent domain authority, but only a court can authorize immediate taking. We have to apply to the circuit court. It has to be through a lawsuit, and a circuit judge would have to grant us that temporary or that immediate access.
That's exactly correct.
We don't just get to go in there. The city doesn't get to go in there and take it.
No,
That process can take a while, and it is subject to the judge, and it's not reviewable. Okay. And if the property owner objects to the public purpose assertion that the city is making, then there would have to be a hearing. We've had to do that in the past, in the recent past. Now, if we ever, and I can't guarantee when we go to court. When we go to court, I'm gonna win. But I can't guarantee when we'd go to court, and I can't guarantee that a judge would grant the immediate access.
I got a question. We were talking about getting some of the school's property. Do you think that would be a problem?
That'd be, we'd have to take it up with the school board. Yes, sir, Mr. Waller.
Yeah, when we looked at it, essentially there are ways to design it that minimize how much property that would end up involving Walmart, but we couldn't. Within sound engineering practice, there wasn't a way to do it without having at least some impact on Walmart. So there are ways to mitigate it, certainly, and you know so it's definitely possible. We'd need to have some cooperation from the school, but ultimately, I think there's going to be need to involve Walmart in some way.
I know that Walmart's pharmacy pickup is there. I've never bought pharmaceuticals there. If anyone has, does it circle around the back of the building, or is it a swing back right around? That drive does circle all the way around the building. Okay, all right.
Hey, Mayor,
Right.
I was
Thank you, Mr.
thinking,
Grimes.
in light that Clara
Yes,
helped the
ma'am.
school district get that street open behind the Presbyterian church, maybe they would be willing to help out in this situation. Possibly. Don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, possibly.
On the site plan, and I'm not sure who needs to answer, were there ever any, and I know this has kind of gone out of fashion, but were there any plans for a parsonage anywhere that would be residential?
That wasn't included on there, no.
Has anyone contacted anyone from Walmart?
Oh my God. Me and Frank have been on that journey together.
Yeah. Have you?
Yes. Yeah.
Pleasant?
Well, let Frank.
Come on, Billy
Frank
Paul.
can. It was a journey. Let's just say that.
There's so many layers we went through that's disgusting. We went through layer after layer after layer after layer after layer. Paul was there, James was there. We have done all we could do with them. They're not amenable to giving this church, one church, anything. And I find that disgusting. I don't mind that.
I have a question, Frank. What are their specific problems with it? Is it their pharmacy drive-through? Is it their delivery trucks? What is it that they don't? Why do they not want that?
They've never enunciated a clear reason to me or any of us why. It's just, no, we're going to let you talk to my boss. And then we finally met with via phone, a really, really nice lady who, in my opinion, our opinion, wanted to do it, but she was told not to. I mean, we could tell from the tone of her voice that she was like, yeah, well, we just can't do that. And that was really about it.
So is there any way that you could put a few houses back there on the site as well?
I think that if you put a house back there, they could say, you can use it for the house, but not for the church. Now, let me note for you, just, this is important. Okay, R1, it's R1 zone. So you can open that street up, Ferris Road, for residential uses. So our first thought was, a good thought, we'll leave it residential and get a conditional use, not rezone it. So it is R1. But that argument wouldn't fly either. That's what we first tried, was leave it R1, then get a conditional use because it's a residential use. Now, isn't it? Isn't it a residential use? But they won't let us do it without suing them. And they said, we have 6 floors full of lawyers. File it. We don't want to chase the money.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Okay, council, we'll bring it back to you guys.
Well, let me say that obviously the location is wonderful for a church. The mission's wonderful. That's why we approved it the last time. Not in question. The question is the ingress and the egress. That's why we're back here. I'm not a big fan of only one entrance through that neighborhood. I mean, y'all got, nobody's here tonight, but we got lots of emails from folks who live in that neighborhood who didn't like it. That's a little neighborhood, little roads, an old neighborhood. I mean, I think.
That was the deal breaker the last time.
And that was the deal breaker the last time.
Yeah.
That's why we went that way. So I got no problem with the church.
No.
I mean, I got helicopter folks in on Sundays. I don't know, maybe Walmart would like that less. But going out that sunset is the hang up for me. And that's why we didn't do it that way last time.
I agree.
My only issue with it is not after the church is built. It's while the church is being built. It's all the heavy equipment going down those streets. I think they said they had 150 members. 150 cars on Sunday morning is not really that awful. And as we all know, you know, about half that goes on Sunday night. So it's the construction vehicles that I would have a problem with.
I'd like to see us pursue all these different ideas we talked about. Keep hammering on Walmart and talk to the school and figure out what else we might can do.
Okay.
I got a question. Have we exhausted everything we could to get Walmart to agree on this?
Mr. Walden? Mr. Walden? Mr. Jones has a question. We have, as a city and the church, exhausted everything that they can do with Walmart.
I mean, it was pretty much at a dead end. I would say the next step is, I mean, we did not have a willing partner. I will say that, and so the next step would be eminent domain. Okay. From a planning standpoint, I do find it strange that Ferris Road did not extend. I will concur with Mr. Shaw on that at the time Walmart developed. So regardless of the timing of it's not convenient, but regardless of whether a church is there or if it's parkland or something else, from a planning standpoint, having connectivity, connecting those two dots would be beneficial. Is it highly beneficial weighed against, you know, other priorities that we have? That's a larger question that doesn't necessarily involve me. But I do think, regardless of the situation, that having a connection there would be beneficial at some point.
What is the property line that Walmart owns on the eastern side? Can anybody tell me that toward the northern boundary of that property?
It's kind of a weird area. So the right of way stops around where that sidewalk comes across that goes over to the east, and then there's portions of it that are split between the school and Walmart.
Part of the existing roadway?
Yeah.
And as I remember, that's kind of on a hill, isn't it, David? In their little.
There is a berm at the back of Walmart's loading area.
The little rise right there. I mean, why couldn't you come to right there, which is where the street is, and do just a little jog? When y'all might blow it right through there. That's what I'm saying. Where's the ownership of that? I mean, that seems like that should be.
Ms. Mel?
Yes, would one option be to table this agenda item until we have a little more information about eminent domain and
School
perhaps
district.
working with the school district and go, if there's enough room to go around what Walmart owns and connect?
I mean, we certainly can provide you all the information that we sort of developed up to this point. It was the option that avoided Walmart altogether was. I'm laughing because it was really funny looking. It was some crazy curves, but it was not something that I think anybody would want to have happen. Just remembering.
So I make a motion to table this agenda item and give everybody some time, including Charles, who I think needs to be brought into the conversation, to make sure it is for a public use, if we did have to go with eminent domain, but also if there are other alternative ways
Second.
to come into the property.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to table this tonight. This will not be a lengthy process by any means. It'll give us a chance to visit with the school district and some other folks. So I have a motion and a second on the floor to table this at this time and bring it back at a later date. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 8-0.
We respect your vote and your opinion on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really do appreciate it. No matter how it ends up, I appreciate you taking care and concern. I really do.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Next on the agenda is the Public Safety Committee, and our first piece of business there is an ordinance appropriating donation funds for personnel protective equipment for the Conway Fire Department. Chief Winter's here to speak to this. Chief, you do any good in the woods?
5 limits.
Huh?
5 limits this morning.
Attaboy. Try game wardens, he went over his limit.
We have received a grant from Walmart for $1,000. We're just asking for acceptance. We got $1,000. We're asking for acceptance so we can.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Well, I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 8-0.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance to appropriate these funds to the fire department from Walmart. Any further discussion?
We thank Walmart very much for the $1,000 grant.
Ms. Hurd.
This is O-21-122. Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Passes 8-0. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next up is an ordinance to authorize the addition of 1 new position for an investigator for the city attorney's office. Mr. Finkenbeiner will be speaking this. I would like to throw in my little bit of knowledge on this. This will help us quite a bit in putting officers back on the street, and it also will help us with some of our overtime, because right now we're having to use Conway PD officers to deliver summons. Is that correct?
To serve subpoenas.
Serve subpoenas.
for the
I
city
knew someone
attorney's
started with
office.
S. And this will free up some of those officers. Chief Tapley, would you agree with that?
Yes, I would.
Okay, thank you. That's the time I'll turn this over to Mr. Finkenbeiner.
Yeah, and if, Mr. Mayor, if you do get a summons or a subpoena, I need to know which. It is important.
I'm not a lawyer.
So, what the city attorney's office has been looking at since January, and my predecessor Chuck Clausen as well, ways that we could assist the police department in carrying out their duties, and we've done a number of things to try to alleviate the burden. And especially now with the shortfall that all police departments are seeing, it becomes even more important. One of the things that the police department, the patrol officers in particular, have to do on a daily, weekly basis is serve subpoenas from district court cases, which is time consuming, and it's just something that they're doing week in and week out. Another thing that patrol officers are required to do currently is provide bailiff duties at the district court, and that could be as many as 3 days a week. And court can run to 8, 9 o'clock at night, depending on how unreasonable I am that day. All that is money that's coming from the police department, and most of it is overtime. There are times where they do not have the positions. They don't have the patrol officers, and they have to provide a bailiff anyway. So the proposal is to have this position not only be responsible for serving all the subpoenas that my office issues in district court cases, taking that whole duty away from the police officers, but also taking away and taking over all the bailiff duties. So this position would not only serve all the subpoenas that my office issues, but would also provide all the bailiffs for any days that the city is required to have a bailiff present. In addition, the position would also, as an investigator position, would assist us in increasing our outreach to domestic violence victims by providing a person that would enable us to have even more rapid response to victims of domestic violence, and take care of some other duties that are currently tasked to patrol officers in going and picking up surveillance video, for example, on a theft of property case or a battery case, those kinds of things. And I believe that this position would allow the chief to have his officers out on the street where they need to be.
So this would be a certified police officer position?
Correct. In order to be a bailiff, it has to be a certified officer. My chief deputy, Evan Pence, did some research on this. I wish I could take credit for it, but he did. I spoke to Ernest Kate. He's the city attorney of Springdale. They are another city attorney's office in Arkansas that has an investigator position like we do. The difference would be this investigator position I would expect at least half of his or her duties every week would be to be serving subpoenas and providing bailiff duties at district court.
Second.
Okay, did we waive the 3 readings?
Oh.
Yeah.
Sheila, you've called them down.
I make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 8-0.
Second.
With the emergency clause?
Yes.
Look at you. I have a motion, a second, to adopt this ordinance with the emergency clause for the addition of a new position for the investigator for the city attorney's office. I would like to clarify, I made the comment about it does impact overtime. Chief, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Currently, when we supply bailiff for the district court, often that is on an overtime basis, and it's based directly upon that particular officer's pay rate as to how much that actually is.
Okay, thank you, Chief. I just wanted to make sure I hadn't spoken out of turn there. All right.
I'm sorry, one more question since that was brought up.
Yes, sir.
You said this is a certified police officer?
Correct.
You have a problem hiring one?
This guy. Go ahead, John. Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Jones.
All I was gonna say, a bailiff can be a certified officer, but he's not necessarily a patrol officer, if you understand what I'm saying.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is somebody that's gonna work in your court and serve, is that right?
Correct. They'll be a city employee, and a big part of their duties, probably half, would be to be a service bailiff in a district court, just in the district court.
Thank you, Mr. Any further questions? Miss Hurd.
Mr. Hawkins? Yes. Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
And the emergency clause, Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes? Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Those both pass 8-0. That was a good question, Mr. Grimes. It makes you wonder if we're gonna be able to get someone, so but hopefully, I think you answered that for us, Mr. Jones.
Well, I think it'll be easier to get someone to do this than being a certified policeman that works on the street.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
I'm just,
All right.
I'm thinking.
And they get to work with me.
Well, we're talking about.
Next up is a resolution supporting the creation of an income tax credit for law enforcement officers in the state. Actually, this is a statewide move, but it's for the Conway Police Department. Chief Tapley, would you explain this, please, sir?
Sure. As you said, this is a resolution in support of the creation of a state income tax credit for full-time law enforcement officers. It's our understanding that in this next session that there will be legislation to create that to help with the recruitment and the retention of officers throughout the state. As we all know, that's been an issue for quite some time, and we're just simply asking you for your support.
So
when
moved.
this bill is brought forth.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve this resolution supporting the creation of an income tax credit for law enforcement officers. Actually, specifically for us, for the Conway Police Department, for our state officers statewide. Is that a fair way of saying it? Any further discussion? Ms. Hurd.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Passes 8-0. Thank you, Chief. The last item on the agenda, hang on, I think oh, no, we're done. These are our yearly millages for the city. There was no change. That is correct, Mr. Winningham, and this
You
is,
skipped something.
did I?
C1.
Okay, I hit too many buttons. Yes. Okay, next, boy, that's a big one. Next on the agenda is finance, and this is an ordinance appropriating funds for the employee appreciation bonus. This is it $600 for all full-time employees and $300 for all part-time employees? And I also asked Mr. Winningham to include this council because I promise you, everything that you guys, ladies and gentlemen, do is work.
Make a
So
motion
I've
to
asked
waive
y'all to
3
be included
readings.
as well.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 8-0.
I make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance along with the emergency clause.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance with the emergency clause to appropriate funds for the employee appreciation Christmas bonus. Any further discussion?
Mary, you all right?
Mary, did you fall?
Sorry.
Have you fallen and you can't get up?
Is it later or earlier where you are?
5 o'clock.
Sorry, guys.
I'm sorry, it's gonna take me a second. Yeah. Ms. Hurd.
This is ordinance 21-124. Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Mr.
Absolutely,
Jones?
yes.
Ms. Smith?
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Hawkins? Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Ms. Tucker? Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
And the emergency clause, Ms. Mel?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins? Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Those both pass 8-0. Thank you, council. I know the city employees will appreciate that. We have a tremendous group of employees who have worked hard for us in the city, and anything we can do to help them is greatly appreciated. Thank you all. The last item on the agenda is new business, and this is our yearly millage for the city. And as Mr. Winningham said, there's not any changes in this, and as soon as we pass this, then we will get that information to the county clerk, and they will register it, and we'll be ready to go as a city. Mr. Finkenbinder suggests that we read these individually, since they are on the agenda individually, but we can make quick voting of it. The first one is a resolution of voluntary levy of 4/10 of a mil on the dollar for public recreation and playground for City of Conway. Is that a reading enough of that, Mr. Finkenbinder?
Animal shelter.
First one is number.
Animal
I
shelter.
have hit too many buttons again. I'm
First one
sorry.
is the one with a 1 beside it. Sometimes sometimes it comes back home.
It does. All right, let me start over.
We're all getting a little confused.
We are.
Yeah, I said we figured too long.
This right here, one, right here by it. Thank you. A resolution authorizing the millage rate of voluntary property tax for the purpose of operating the city animal and welfare shelter for the year 2021 to be collected in 2022.
Make a
No,
motion
Mr.
for
Easton, we
adoption
need to vote one at a
resolution.
time.
I make a motion. Second.
I'm sorry.
That's the
Resolution, yeah.
resolution.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this resolution. Any further discussion?
Aye.
Ms. Hurd.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Passes 8-0. The next one will be a 2. Thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. The next one is a resolution authorizing a millage rate of voluntary property tax for the purpose of operating the City of Conway Public Rec and Playgrounds for the year 2021 to be collected in 2022.
Make a motion for the adoption of the resolution, and I have that as 87. Is that correct, Ms. Hurd? The other was 86.
86, 87, yes.
Thank you.
And operating is
It sure is.
It's really operating, not just.
And I didn't do the typing on that.
Charles Dana.
If anyone's gonna catch an error, it's gonna be.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this resolution. Any further discussion? Ms. Hurd.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
The next one is a resolution authorizing the millage rate of voluntary property tax for the purpose of operating and maintaining the City of Conway cemeteries for the year 2021 to be collected in 2022.
Make a motion for the adoption of the resolution. Should be number 88 with the correction of the spelling of operating.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve this resolution with the correction of the spelling. Any further discussion? Ms. Hurd.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
That passes 8-0. Our next one is a resolution authorizing the millage rate of property tax for the City of Conway Police Officer Pension for the year 2021 to be collected in 2022.
Make a motion for the adoption of the resolution. 89.
I have a motion and a second to approve this resolution for the Conway Police Officer's Pension. Any further discussion? Ms. Hurd.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
That passes 8-0. We have a resolution authorizing the millage rate of property tax for the City of Conway Firefighters Pension and Relief Fund for the year 2021 to be collected in 2022.
Make a motion for the adoption of the resolution. 90.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this resolution to approve the millage for the Conway Firefighters Pension and Relief Fund. Any further discussion? Ms. Hurd.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Passes 8-0. Next is a resolution authorizing the millage rate or property tax for the City of Conway non-uniform pension and relief fund for the year 2021 to be collected in 2022.
Make a motion for the adoption of the resolution. 91.
We have a motion and a second to approve this millage property rate for the City of Conway for the non-uniform pension and relief fund. Any further discussion? Ms. Hurd.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I think this is the last one.
Number 7.
I know, it's Conway. A resolution authorizing the millage rate of property tax for the City of Conway, Arkansas for the year 2021 to be collected in 2022.
Make a motion for the adoption of the resolution. Number 92.
We have a motion and a second to approve this resolution. Any further comment? Ms. Hurd.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Passes 8-0. Council, I appreciate the good job that you all did tonight, and I appreciate again the Christmas bonuses for our employees. And again, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I think sometimes folks don't know how hard you guys have to work, and I appreciate the job that each of you do. I hope you enjoy Thanksgiving with your families and have a great time this holiday season. And we will get back together the second Tuesday in December. This time I'll take a motion to adjourn. We are
I'm
adjourned. Mary, are
great.
you okay?
No,
Or do we
I'm
need to
good.
call
Thanks.
911?
Y'all happy Thanksgiving.